Hey everyone, I'm Tom.
And I'm Kate.
And we are the Mortons on the Move.
We have been traveling the U.S. for the past couple of years in our fifth wheel RV.
You're watching the second video in our RV security and safety series.
Today we're coming to you from our truck because we are going to be talking about driving safety.
So driving an RV is not like driving a car. There is a lot more to think about. You're in a very big vehicle and you're frequently going to be on unknown roads.
According to the CDC, about 90 deaths and hundreds more ER admissions happen per day due to motor vehicle accidents. So driving is something you really want to take seriously and do as carefully as you can so that you don't end up one of those.
So before we get into motorhome specifics, a few general safety tips that you've heard over and over, but wear your seatbelt.
The CDC reports that half of the drivers or passengers killed in motor vehicle accidents weren't buckled up. So this is something that's really easy to do, and everyone should do it. Please wear your seatbelt.
Secondly, drive without distractions. This is huge for an RV because you might have passengers that can be up walking about. If you're in a motorhome, there's going to be a lot of distractions. Don't look at that text message, don't answer that phone, and don't try to play the game with the people in the back because there's a lot to focus on when you're going down the road.
Now that we've got our public service announcements out of the way, let's talk about RVing or towing an RV specifically.
Before you even hit the road, make sure that you're within your weight ratings and specs of your RV and your tow vehicle if you're towing an RV. RVs and trucks that are capable of towing RVs have gross vehicle weight ratings and gross combined weight ratings, meaning how much they can carry and how much they can tow. And if you exceed these ratings by a substantial margin, the RV is not going to be able to stop well, it won't handle properly, and it'll be at a much higher risk for an accident. It's more than just being within weights too. You need to have the weight distributed properly. If you're too heavy on one side or front to back, again, the RV is not going to drive properly and could, again, be at a higher risk for an accident.
You're also going to want to make sure that any hitches that you are using, whether it's for your fifth wheel or a bumper pull trailer or even towing a car behind a motorhome, you're going to want to make sure that that hitch is rated for the weight that it is towing so that you are doing it safely.
Also think about weight distribution. If you're towing a travel trailer, you might need to have a hitch that's designed to transfer that weight more forward on your vehicle because they can have a lot of tongue weight at the very back of your vehicle. So make sure you get the proper hitch for your setup. Along the lines of hitches, if you're towing a travel trailer, sway control is really critical with travel trailers. You may think you have a big enough vehicle, but if you get going down the road and the wind hits you just wrong, you can really start to sway. So make sure you got a hitch that's going to control the sway properly as well.
Also, before you hit the road, you're going to want to make sure that your tire pressures are right. So check them regularly, and it's a really good idea to have an air compressor on board if you can do that yourself. We have one, and we check it very regularly. And the other thing that you could think about installing is a tire pressure monitor system that automatically measures those and alerts you when you have a tire going low.
Also make sure you tie stuff down in your truck or RV. If you've got stuff strapped to the roof or the bed of the truck or a hitch hauler, make sure it's tied down properly. I can't tell you how many times we've been going down the road and we've seen something flapping that's about to fall out, and actually one time we lost a rug out the back of our truck because it come loose and whoop, right off the side of the highway. So make sure everything's tied down and make sure that the straps and everything that you're tying down are strong enough and they're not frayed or gonna break.
Yeah, this is important not only so you don't lose something that you may potentially need or want, but if it's something large like a rug ends up in the middle of the road, that could cause cars to swerve, it could cause an accident. You really don't want to be responsible for something like that.
Planning your trip before you go is also really critical when driving an RV, and not just for stops and where you want to go, but for what roads might be best for your RV.
So your atlas or GPS will tell you where to go and the most direct route, but sometimes you're not going to know how steep that road may be. So there are some mountain directories out there that will tell you the grades of mountain passes and let you know what to expect along your route. There's a really great video over on Road Gear Reviews by RV Love detailing those mountain directories, and we'd really recommend you checking that out.
It's also really easy to get into really narrow, windy roads with RVs in your travels. It's happened to us a handful of times. Sometimes it's impossible to figure it out ahead of time, but use satellite imagery, look at the roads, go, can we actually fit on that? And that helps out a lot. The satellite imagery is also really great for looking at gas stations and parking lots. If you're going to be pulling in somewhere with your RV, you might not be able to turn around if you get into a certain parking lot. So look at it on the satellite imagery. Just press that little satellite button on your phone or whatnot, and you can see what a parking lot looks like ahead of time. Really, really helpful.
Another thing you're going to want to do is check the weather conditions. A couple of things that we really watch for are high winds, because driving in high winds is extremely terrifying and dangerous, and it's just not worth it. And the other thing is to look for icy conditions. So if you're going to be driving somewhere where there's the potential for ice, that's just also a scary situation. If you don't have to be there urgently, it is much safer to stay where you are and wait for that weather to pass.
Consider the different elevations too. You may start at a really low elevation and climb to a much higher. You may go into freezing conditions. So look at weather all along your route, because it may drastically change if you're changing your location over a great distance and great elevations. So now let's talk about actually driving an RV. These things are really big and they don't handle like a car. Every one of them will stop slower and handle differently. You can't whip it around corners, and you're not going to be able to stop on a dime like when you're driving your car. I like to recommend that people test drive their RV in less busy areas, country roads, where they can really get a feel for how their RV stops and how it accelerates. Because you're going to stop slower, you're going to accelerate slower, you want to know how much follow distance you should leave. And drivers around you are also going to want to get around you. When you're getting on the highway a little bit slower, they might try to zip around you, they might try to cut in front of you, and it's good to know how your RV handles so that you're safe in those situations. Also, try not to get too upset with people, because they are going to do that occasionally. I mean, we keep up with traffic just fine, but sometimes they're just like, big RV, I have to get around them, and it can be very frustrating when people are trying to cut in front of you all the time.
We already kind of talked about roads, but it's very important to choose appropriate roads to drive on. You know, if you're coming to an intersection and it's telling you to turn onto some dirt road that looks really narrow, you know, maybe you can go an alternate route, and maybe it'll take you an extra mile or two, but to go an easier way with your RV rather than kind of push it with the inappropriate roads would be a better idea. Your RV is so much longer than your normal vehicle, and there's a lot more chance to bottom out, and you may not have as good a clearance. So consider this when you're going through dips, or considering going through a ditch, going over railroads, or steep inclines and declines in your road, so that you're aware of how your RV will move, and if you're going to be in a sticky situation where you might bottom out.
So let's talk about turning corners. This is terribly frightening for most first-time RV drivers, because you're so big and you got to get around that corner. I highly recommend going to a parking lot with your RV when you first get it, or when you're learning, and just backing up and turning around cones and such to learn how it handles. Most of the time you're going to have to swing wide with corners. As you get to know your RV, you're going to learn how it turns, where the tires are going to be in the turns, so that you don't clip corners or the car next to you. It's just a really good idea just to practice. Practice makes perfect with it, and do it in a safe situation, in a parking lot with cones, a dirt lot, anything where you're going to have plenty of space and nothing to hit. Along the same lines of turning corners and squeezing into tight situations, in a big rig like this, you're going to have to get comfortable getting really close to stuff, because you take up more of the road. When you go through toll booths or entrances to campgrounds and such, just be sure to watch your clearance on either side, because your RV might be wider than your truck. And also overhead overhangs in the road, make sure to consider those. So many times when you're driving through a campground entrance, you'll see little overhangs on buildings that have been clipped because people were too close over. If you have to get out to go talk to the toll attendant or whatnot, do it. Don't get too close. You might not be able to get in or out without clipping the side of the road or the top of your RV.
So let's talk a little bit about speed. Obviously, we all should obey the speed limit, but even though the sign may say 75, you don't have to drive 75. The faster you go when you're this big and this heavy, the more likely something bad could happen, or if something does happen, the worse it's going to be. So definitely consider slowing down. Like Tom said, you're going to need that extra time to slow down if you need to in case something happens on the road in front of you. And it's just overall safer. And really, it's not worth, driving that extra 5 miles an hour to put you in more danger.
Wind forces are exponential with speed. So the faster you go, you're a very large surface area going down the road, and you're going to exponentially increase the force on the front of your RV. You're going to decrease your fuel economy at a considerably larger rate for just a few miles per hour greater, and you're going to be much, much more susceptible to wind at the higher speeds, especially in windy conditions. Slow down for sure, and you'll be much safer, less likely to sway or have issues on the road. With regard to speed, going downhill with an RV, you're going to accelerate much, much faster than with a car. With all the weight, your RV is going to want to barrel down hills, and you're going to have to use a lot more brake, or you're going to have to use an engine brake if you have one on a bigger diesel rig. When you know you're going to be going down a steep hill, say you see that 7-8% grade sign, slow down to say 40 miles per hour or so, and your RV is going to be able to handle it a lot better. Your brakes will be able to handle it. Even your engine brake, if you're running it, will be able to handle it a lot better. Don't barrel down grades really fast, because if your brakes do overheat, if you lose them, you're already going to be going way too fast and have a much, much harder time stopping. We've all seen those truck runaway ramps. You don't ever want to have to use one.
The next thing we want to talk about is visibility. When you're driving your RV, you're really going to want to learn how to use your mirrors so that you can see what's going on around you. It's a lot bigger of a rig, and your visibility out the back may be quite impaired. So definitely use your mirrors to their full extent. Figure out what the best angle is so that you can see the most around you.
So your mirrors are great. You need to make sure to have nice big tow mirrors that are appropriate for your rig. But a lot of times you're not going to have a rear view like in the rear view mirror in your car unless you have a backup camera. A lot of trailers and fifth wheels don't have backup cameras built in, and we decided to add one recently. We did a review on it. We didn't know what we were missing before. We ran for about a year without one. It's really, really nice to have for changing lanes, seeing what's behind you, backing into campground sites. We highly recommend it. Definitely check out our review over on Rogue Gear Reviews.
Another thing to consider driving a big rig like this is overhead clearance. Tom kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. Low-hanging tree branches, signs, even gas station awnings. Those are things that you're going to want to be really cognizant of so that you don't end up hitting them.
A lot of motorhomes and RVs these days are over 13 feet tall, and you want to know the height of your RV. Measure it to the highest point on top of the RV. A lot of times that's your air conditioner at the top of the RV. 13 foot 6 inches is kind of the general tallest height that most roads are designed for. If you're around that height though, you're probably going to have issues with tree branches, gas station awnings, things like that. We actually installed a system called the Giraffe G4 that we did a review on, and it measures the height of obstacles above our truck so we know if we're going to clear it with our RV. Take a look for the review on that on Road Gear Reviews as well. RVs also have an additional fuel source a lot of times. A lot of times it's propane. Sometimes you're carrying gasoline for a generator. And there's legalities around carrying these flammable liquids on the road. A lot of times you need to shut off your propane when you're going down the highway or at gas stations. Your fridge runs on propane a lot of times. You could have a furnace or a hot water heater. These things need to be off when you're going down the road. If you end up going on a ferry or in a tunnel, a lot of times they will actually check to make sure that your propane is off. Know the rules and regulations. Keep your gasoline stored in a safe manner, and also turn your propane off if you're at a gas station or in a situation where it shouldn't be on.
And if you don't know how to do those things, definitely figure that out ahead of time. That would be kind of an embarrassing situation to be asked to shut that off and not know how. Know your emergency exits, especially in a motorhome that you're going to be in while you're driving down the road. If for some reason your RV were to tip over, there's often multiple exits that you can use to get out of the RV, and they're usually windows, so check them out and know how to operate them just in case something like that happens.
For driving your RV at night, you're going to want to make make sure that your headlights are properly adjusted. If you're towing or in a motorhome, your headlights might change their position depending on how much weight you have in it. Like a truck may sit in a certain position, but once you add that weight to it, it might tip up and you might shine your headlights up into other drivers' eyes. This can happen with a motorhome as well, so make sure that when you're loaded that your headlights are properly adjusted if you're going to be driving at night. Also make sure your clearance lights are working around your RV and your tail lights. These things might not be as obvious, especially on a trailer that's disconnected from your truck. When you plug it in, make sure everything's working at night, all your lighting, before you hit the road.
As you're going along your route, know your general location so that you can communicate that easily and quickly to anybody should you need help or need to contact emergency personnel. If you break down on the highway, definitely use your flashers, get off the road if you can, and set up to let people know that you are there, especially if it's getting dark. Consider getting reflective cones or buckets to show where you are. It might also be a good idea to have some flares on hand. Some friends of ours recently did a review on some LED flares by Magnatech over on Road Gear Reviews, so check that out.
In case of a breakdown, you also want to be prepared to deal without services for a little while. You are in a motor home that has all the comforts of home, so make sure to have a little bit of water, make sure to have a little bit of fuel and food, and you can wait out until you get some help more comfortably while you're broken down on the side of the road. Driving an RV, there is lots more that can go wrong, but it can be done safely if you know that your RV is within specs and you know how to operate it safely.
Definitely don't be shy to go practice. Practice makes perfect and makes you safer. So spend some time with your RV, get to know it really well in and out, and you should be able to operate it quite safely.
Finally, don't drive tired. You're in your RV. You can rest whenever you need to, so pull over, take a nap if you need to. Driving tired impairs your judgment more than you may know, so make sure that you're nice and rested before you hit the road.
Yep, definitely don't push it. It's not very fun, and we don't want you to get hurt out there.
Thanks for watching our driving safety video in our RV and safety security series.
Check out our other videos that will be coming soon, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
If you'd like some more information regarding trucks and towing specifically, here's another one of our videos you would probably enjoy. Thanks for watching and supporting us with your subscription. Be sure to find our other RV security and safety videos on this channel.